The $600 communist car that humiliated Porsche on its own roads. What if I told you, a car that cost less than $600, built in a communist country with a two-stroke engine, actually humiliated Porsche on its own roads? No, this isn't a joke. This actually happened. And the story gets even more insane from here. Stay with me, because by the end of this video you're going to question everything you thought you knew about what makes a great car. Welcome back to Classic Car Challenge, where we uncover the most shocking, forgotten, and unbelievable stories in automotive history. Today we're diving deep into one of the most bizarre, fascinating, and surprisingly emotional car stories ever told. The Trabant. A car that the entire Western world laughed at. A car that engineers called primitive. A car that journalists called a joke. But here's the truth nobody talks about. This car outlasted empires. It survived a wall. It carried families through one of the most dramatic moments in human history. And it humiliated Porsche along the way. This is the full story of the Trabant, and I promise you, it's nothing like you expect. To understand the Trabant, you first need to understand the world it was born into. It's 1945. World War II has just ended. Germany is completely destroyed, and the Allied powers have divided the country into two separate nations. West Germany, supported by America, Britain, and France. They rebuild quickly. Economy booms. Cars like Porsche, Mercedes, and BMW begin rising again. East Germany, controlled by the Soviet Union, a communist state. The government controls everything. The factories, the food, the information, even the cars. Now here's the problem. East Germans needed transportation, but the government had almost nothing to work with. No aluminum, extremely limited steel, no access to Western technology. So in 1957, the East German government gave a group of engineers one of the most impossible tasks in automotive history. Build a car. Make it affordable for every single citizen. Use whatever materials you can find. And make it work. The engineers looked at what they had available, and what they found was cotton, wool fibers, and phenol resin, a type of hardened plastic. They mixed these materials together and created something called Duroplast, a composite material unlike anything used in cars before or since. Western engineers heard about this and laughed out loud. They called it ridiculous. They called it dangerous. They said it would fall apart in 5 years. They were wrong, spectacularly wrong, but we'll get to that. So what exactly was the Trabant? Let's start with the engine. A two-stroke engine, just 2 cylinders, 26 horsepower. To put that in perspective, a modern lawnmower has similar power output. Top speed, 112 kilometers per hour. On a good day, with the wind behind you. The fuel system had no fuel gauge. Drivers had to use a dipstick, literally a wooden stick, to check how much petrol was left in the tank. There were no turn signals in early models. No radio. No heating worth mentioning. In winter, East German drivers would sit in their Trabants, wearing full winter coats, gloves, and sometimes blankets. And the exhaust? Oh, the exhaust. The two-stroke engine burned oil mixed with fuel, producing a thick blue smoke that followed the car everywhere. People said you could smell a Trabant before you could see it. By every measurable standard, this car was terrible. And yet, East Germans loved it. Deeply, genuinely loved it. Why? Because in a world where the government controlled everything, the Trabant was yours. It was freedom on 4 wheels. It was the one thing the state gave you that actually felt personal. Families would spend weekends maintaining their Trabant together. Fathers teaching sons how to fix the engine. Mothers decorating the interior. Children growing up with that distinctive blue smoke smell permanently attached to their childhood memories. The Trabant wasn't just a car. It was a family member. Now let's talk about the moment that made the Trabant legendary. The Autobahn. East Germany. Late 1960s. Informal street racing was happening everywhere in both East and West Germany. Young men with fast cars and nothing to prove, proving everything. In West Germany, Porsche 356 owners were kings of the road. Sleek, powerful, expensive, the ultimate symbol of Western success. Now imagine their faces when a Trabant pulls up beside them at a traffic light. The laughter was immediate, loud, mocking. But some Trabant owners had been quietly doing something extraordinary. With almost zero budget and basic tools, they had been modifying their cars, shaving weight, tuning the carburetor to absolute perfection, adjusting the suspension with handmade parts. These weren't professional mechanics. These were ordinary workers, factorymen, teachers, farmers, who had become extraordinary engineers out of pure necessity. And on certain stretches of road, in certain conditions, these modified Trabants would do something impossible. They would keep up with the Porsche. Not always, not every time, but enough times that word spread. The Porsche drivers stopped laughing. Their mechanics started asking questions. How was this possible? How could a cotton car with 26 horsepower embarrass a precision German sports car? The answer was simple and devastating. The Trabant drivers cared more. They had less, so they worked harder. They were smarter with what they had. And sometimes, caring more is the most powerful engine in the world. November 9th, 1989, one of the most dramatic nights in modern history. The Berlin Wall falls, and within hours, thousands of East Germans pour through the checkpoints into West Germany, many of them driving Trabants. Imagine that scene. West Germans standing on the streets, watching this river of tiny, smoke-belching, cotton-bodied cars streaming past them. Some West Germans laughed, some waved, some cried, because they understood what they were seeing. These weren't just cars. These were families who had waited decades for this moment. People who had lived their entire lives behind a wall. And the vehicle that carried them to freedom was this humble, ridiculous, magnificent little Trabant. West German car dealerships quickly set up along the crossing points, offering brand new Western cars in exchange for Trabants. Some East Germans accepted immediately, thrilled to finally have a real car. But many refused. They drove their Trabant into West Germany and kept driving it, because that car had been with them through everything, through the fear, through the waiting, through the years of hoping. You don't just abandon something that carried you through that. Before we finish, here are 4 facts about the Trabant that will stay with you. Fact 1. The waiting list was 12 years. People ordered a Trabant and waited over a decade, and they still ordered it, because it was the only option available. Fact 2. Duroplast cannot rust, ever. Which means thousands of Trabants are sitting in fields and junkyards across Eastern Europe right now, body completely intact, just slowly being reclaimed by nature. Fact 3. After reunification, so many East Germans abandoned their Trabants in West Germany that the West German government had to pass emergency laws about abandoned vehicle disposal. There were simply too many of them. Fact 4. Today, a fully restored Trabant sells for between $8,000 and $15,000 at auction. That $600 communist car is now a collector's item worth 20 times its original price. The Trabant was never supposed to be remembered. It was supposed to be forgotten, buried under the weight of history like so many things from that era. But here's what I've learned from studying forgotten cars. The ones that truly matter were never about horsepower or luxury or speed. They were about the people who drove them, the families who depended on them, the stories that happened inside them. The Trabant carried people to work in the dark of communist winters. It carried newborns home from hospitals. It carried families on their only vacation of the year. And finally, it carried an entire nation toward freedom. No Porsche ever did that. So the next time someone laughs at something small and underestimated, remember the Trabant. Remember that cotton and resin and 26 horsepower once humiliated an empire. And sometimes, that's enough. If this story moved you even slightly, subscribe, because every week we find stories exactly like this one. Stories that history forgot. Stories that deserve to be told. Drop a comment below. Did you know about the Trabant before today? See you in the next one.